We live in an age where the superhero medium has been the most divisive it's been in a long time, possibly ever. Marvel and DC have been putting out questionable projects and making even stranger decisions in the past few years, and it's left a very sour taste in many fans' mouths. While I'm a believer that things aren't nearly as bad as others think, especially with the upcoming slates from both Marvel and DC, it's no secret we don't live in a superhero media utopia. Despite all this, there lies two standout superhero projects not made by the big two, but rather by Amazon, being Invincible and The Boys. These two projects are pretty universally celebrated and proof that the superhero medium doesn't have to be past its prime. That's why I'd like to compare them to the far more controversial projects of Marvel and DC as of late, and discuss in what aspects can these two giants improve. If we're comparing and contrasting these four, there's something we need to keep in mind. The Boys, and slightly Invincible as well, are darker parodies of what Marvel and DC have already established. Pretty much every character in The Boys is pretty much obviously parodying another character, and while Invincible is far less, it uses your perception of what a Superman figure is and distorts it through Omni-Man. All that to say, I do not want Marvel and DC to become a parody of themselves. Oh wait, DC already was. I think it's also important to say that I think both are making great strides to improving their quality. Marvel's questionable projects that no one has really asked for are starting to become a thing of the past, if their upcoming projects are anything to go by, and with the DC reboot, I have far more hope than I ever had for their future. With that, I want to talk about one key feature of both shows that they fully embrace, that both Marvel and DC seemingly like to refrain from: the gore and the violence. Gore and other disturbing imagery in The Boys is really just a part of that show's identity. Like, can you really kick off your third season any other way than an Ant-Man sex scene? I don't think so. Stuff like that, while probably being one of the hardest parts of the TV show for me to watch, is a key part of The Boys, and it wouldn't be the same without it. Now, am I saying we need every single project to be as disgusting as The Boys? Hell no. I would be a fool to suggest that. But there are definitely some projects that can benefit from the R rating. That's why I think Invincible is a greater role model for how we could implement gore into the MCU and DCU. The weird kinky sex shit works well for The Boys, but couldn't for anything else. Invincible allows for their fight scenes to embrace the blood, the devastation, the horror, and the reality. No better episode exemplifies this than the season 1 finale. However, it would be a lot to ask for something as mind-blowing as that in live action. I think they should aim for having gore on a similar level of that being Deadpool 1, 2, and Logan, with the occasional project that fully embraces the dark and gory stuff. It's probably a little too optimistic to think that they would ever go that far, but at the very least, this is a step that Marvel is already taking in the right direction with Blade, if it ever comes out, and of course Deadpool 3. Blade wasn't originally rated R, but now it is. They also recently put out a TVMA show in Echo. Kevin Feige was talking about how brutal and rough the show was. However, in all reality, it didn't ever make me feel grossed out or really embrace brutality at all. This is something the original Daredevil Netflix series did so well, so it's always been confusing why they went back on what worked. But obviously, these are lessons they are learning, and hopefully Daredevil Born Again can be just the right amount of brutal. I'm also pretty confident that after the success of Daredevil and Wolverine, they will be far more open to more R-rated projects. As for DC, looking at their lineup, I think the only projects that I think could benefit from an R rating is obviously Swamp Thing and maybe Paradise Lost. The Authority could maybe benefit from it, but I feel like they wouldn't make nearly enough of a profit, if at all, to justify it. Moving on from the darker elements, one big thing Marvel and DC could benefit from is diving more into animation. Invincible gets this so right. There are people who don't think Invincible's animation is good, which I personally couldn't disagree more with. But either way, animation allows for unique stories that can't be told nearly as easily in live action. The Boys actually did a project in animation themselves. I haven't watched it since it's not canon, but still noteworthy, I think. What makes animation special is that it's generally cheaper to produce, but can be so much more stylistically different and give both Marvel and DC a breath of fresh air in their storytelling. Luckily, both are actually proving that they are interested in animation and want to take it seriously. Recently, I finished X-Men 97 and it was simply amazing. Not only are the characters and plot extremely enjoyable, but the animation is downright beautiful. It's right up there with the Spider-Verse films for me. DC too is cooking up an animated series called Creature Commandos, which is on the horizon. In all honesty, I expect it to be dunked on for not being nearly as amazing as X-Men was, but it's still great to see them taking an interest. And literally the day before I go to record this voiceover, DC has announced an animated Blue Beetle series following up on the 2022 film. This also means it'll probably be more up to X-Men 97's new standard for animation. Marvel's got other upcoming animated projects on the horizon as well, with Spider-Man Freshman Year, Marvel Zombies, and What If Season 3. A huge part of what makes both X-Men 97 and Invincible amazing is the writing, so hopefully these other projects can live up to these amazing stories. Speaking of the writing, what The Boys and Invincible get so right is the writing of their characters, as well as the pacing of their story and writing. I know those two sound a bit disconnected, but allow me to explain. Both Invincible and The Boys get you invested in the characters right from the beginning and bring you on the same roller coaster that they go on. I think Invincible is a better example for this, as again, it's more directly related to Marvel and DC. One of the biggest and most common complaints for the MCU Disney Plus shows is that they feel like 2-hour movies that were stretched out to meet the 6-episode Disney Plus quota. This results in the viewer being less attached to what goes on as everything suddenly becomes a chore to sit through. Whereas with a show with pacing as good as Invincible's, the viewers will be far more engaged with what's going on and as a result connect to the characters better. Not to say all Disney Plus shows are bad at this. I think the Hawkeye show is carried by the character work, but shows like Echo, you can tell they were struggling to meet that quota. I mean, look at the finale runtime compared to the rest of the show. Yikes. There is, of course, more that goes into making the shows less of a slog to get through, like having more interesting and compelling dialogue and conflicts other than the very beginning and very end of the show. The Boys is absolutely stellar with this. There are so many tense moments and conflicts between our protagonists and antagonists throughout each season, not just the end of each season. These examples I've given really just come back to a simple concept that the Marvel shows have been missing for the most part. In order to entertain the audience, the shows must be inherently entertaining. This sounds obvious, but stick with me. This can be accomplished through badass fight scenes, comedy, dialogue, or literally anything that people can actually find interesting that fits the story. However, as a result of fans finding these projects lackluster, many found themselves forced with the dilemma that they have to keep up with all the shows or else they will fall behind, to which most people just simply stopped putting an effort to do, which is entirely justified. It became no better than homework and a chore to keep up with. To give Marvel credit though, they have gone on record stating that the shows are no longer going to be necessary to keep up with the movies. They're just bonuses if you either enjoy the character or the show itself actually interests you, which I think is the right thing for them to do. I hope you noticed one thing while watching this video. Just about all of my problems I outlined in this video have been acknowledged by Marvel and DC, and steps are being taken towards fixing them for the betterment of their franchises. This is why I said at the beginning that I don't think things are really as bad as most people who dogpile on Marvel seem to think. And these aren't even all the improvements they are making. These are just the ones relevant to Invincible and The Boys. They've dedicated themselves to putting out less projects a year in order to have a higher quality in each. They're focusing on the characters that the fans truly want to see, like the Fantastic Four. They even finally made the Netflix Defenders shows canon. Daredevil, my beloved, welcome home. At DC, Snyder's controversial reign has long ended, and after a period of not really knowing what to do, James Gunn has taken the wheel. I think DC has far more pressure as they haven't released a project yet, but I have hope that we will see the formation of a great DC cinematic universe. However, only time will tell if they have their redemption stories fulfilled, or if they'll fall under the pressure. I, for one, look forward to seeing what happens, and hope for the best for not just Marvel and DC, but of course Invincible and The Boys as well. I'm a little worried with how rapidly Invincible Season 3 is coming along. It's great, don't get me wrong, but I just hope they aren't sacrificing the animation for a more consistent release schedule. On the flip side, The Boys has come out saying that Season 5 will be the final season, which was a concern of mine, that it would end up like a show like The Walking Dead and have like 11 seasons and lose its fan base along the way. But yeah, that's all I've got for now. I've got some other videos where I talk about video games, but I am looking to talking about other TV shows like the Fallout show, which will be going up soon on this channel. So stay tuned for that. I got other stuff coming out. If you want to subscribe, wink wink, that'd be pretty cool. But that's all I got for now, so see ya.